Belief is not neutral. That sentence alone unsettles most people more than any open act of oppression ever could. Because belief feels personal, intimate, chosen. It feels like something that belongs to you, something you arrived at through reflection, experience, and revelation. But belief is rarely born in isolation. Belief is shaped, reinforced, rewarded, and protected long before you consciously decided you hold it. And once belief settles into the structure of your identity, it begins to operate automatically. It filters perception. It organizes interpretation. It decides what you see, what you ignore, and what you defend without needing evidence. This is where belief stops being a private matter and becomes a mechanism. Control does not begin with force. Force is inefficient, visible, and unstable. Control begins with belief installation. Once a belief is internalized, enforcement becomes unnecessary. The individual polices themselves. They correct their own thought. They experience doubt as guilt. They experience questioning as danger. They experience contradiction as threat. The system no longer needs to act. The mind does the work. This is why the most stable systems of control are invincible to those inside them. Nothing feels imposed. Nothing feels forced. Everything feels chosen. People often imagine control as something external, a ruler, a law, a weapon, a visible authority issuing commands. But the most effective control systems are psychological. They shape what feels reasonable, moral, and real. They narrow the range of acceptable thought without ever announcing limits. When belief is installed correctly, the individual will defend the system more aggressively than the system will defend itself. This is not a flaw in character. It is a feature of human cognition. Belief creates coherence. It organizes chaos. It gives the mind a framework to operate within. And once that framework exists, anything that threatens it triggers an automatic defensive response. This is why people protect ideas that harm them. Not because they are foolish, not because they are weak, but because abandoning a belief is not an intellectual act, it is an existential one. Belief is tied to identity. Identity is tied to belonging. Belonging is tied to survival. When a belief is threatened, the nervous system responds as though the body itself is at risk. This is why debates rarely change minds. This is why facts often fail. This is why evidence bounces off certainty. Belief is not primary cognitive. It is emotional and social. A belief that gives you meaning, community, and moral positioning will be defended regardless of its accuracy. Truth becomes secondary to coherence. Accuracy becomes secondary to belonging. This is how belief becomes leverage. Control systems understand this deeply. Even when individuals within them do not, they do not need to convince you that a belief is true. They only need to integrate it into your sense of self. Once belief becomes identity, questioning becomes self-attack. This is why belief systems are introduced gently, rarely through confrontation, almost never through force. They are introduced through repetition, normalization, and emotional reward. A child does not choose their earliest beliefs, they absorb them. Through tone, through reaction, through what is praised and what is punished, through what causes approval and what causes withdrawal, belief is installed before reasoning is developed. By the time the individual is capable of analysis, the belief is already structural. It feels obvious, natural, self-evident. Anything outside it feels strange, extreme, and threatening. This is why belief systems react aggressively to questioning, not because they are fragile in truth, but because they are fragile in function. Questioning destabilizes predictability. Predictability is the currency of control. A predictable population is manageable. A predictable individual is reliable. They respond in expected ways. They make choices within known boundaries. They correct themselves when they drift too far. Belief provides those boundaries internally. Truth does not need to be defended. Belief always does. This distinction matters. Truth does not recruit. Belief does. Truth does not fear examination. Belief requires protection. Truth does not punish doubt. Belief often does. When a system reacts to questioning with shame, anger, or moral condemnation, it is not protecting truth. It is protecting stability. This is why belief systems often collapse when exposed to sustained inquiry, not because inquiry is hostile, but because belief was never designed to withstand it. Belief thrives in repetition, not investigation. This is also why belief systems prioritize slogans over explanations, mantras over mechanics, statements over structures. The goal is not understanding, the goal is alignment. Aligned people are predictable. Predictable people are manageable. Understanding, by contrast, produces independence. Independence produces variability. Variability disrupts systems that rely on uniform response. This is why belief is taught, while understanding is often discouraged. Understanding asks, how does this work? Belief will ask, do you accept this? Those are not the same questions. Belief seeks agreement, understanding seeks clarity. And clarity is dangerous. A person who understands how a system operates cannot be easily manipulated by it. They may still participate, but participation becomes conscious rather than automatic. That shift alone changes everything. This is why belief systems frame obedience as virtue, compliance as goodness, acceptance as maturity, surrender as enlightenment. These framings are not accidental. They associate submission with moral value. They reward those who do not question with approval, status, or belonging. Over time, obedience becomes internalized as goodness, and questioning becomes associated with arrogance, immorality, or spiritual failure. Once this association is established, control is complete. No one needs to silence the questioner. The community will do that. No one needs to enforce conformity. The individual will feel guilty for deviating. Belief has become self-enforcing. This is also why belief systems often contain contradictions that are never examined. Examination would require stepping outside the belief to observe it. That step alone feels dangerous. So contradictions are framed as mystery. Inconsistencies are renamed paradox. Gaps are filled with faith. Faith in this context does not mean trust born of understanding. It means suspension of inquiry. And suspension of inquiry is the foundation of control. This does not mean all belief is malicious. It means belief is powerful, and anything powerful will be used. A belief that organizes millions of minds would be leveraged, whether internally or not, intentionally or not, deliberately or not. This is why the most effective control systems do not demand belief overtly. They create environments where belief feels inevitable. Media repetition, social reinforcement, moral framing, emotional reward. Over time, the belief stops feeling like a belief at all. It becomes reality. Reality, however, is not what is believed. Reality is what persists regardless of belief. Truth survives scrutiny. Belief requires shelter. This is the difference you must learn to observe. When an idea is presented, ask not whether it feels right, but whether it can withstand examination. Ask whether it explains mechanisms or merely offers exclusions. Ask whether it invites inquiry or discourages it. If an idea collapses under questioning, it was never true. If a system punishes doubt, it is not serving understanding. This channel does not ask you to replace one belief with another. That would change nothing. Belief substitution is still belief independence. The task is not to believe differently. The task is to see differently. Seeing does not require belief. It requires attention. Attention reveals patterns. Patterns reveal structure. Structure reveals function. Once function is understood, belief becomes optional. This is why systems fear understanding more than rebellion. Rebellion can be predicted. Understanding cannot. A rebellious mind still reacts. An understanding mind responds. Reaction is manageable. Response is not. If you feel discomfort listening to this, notice where it rises. Is it intellectual disagreement, or is it something deeper? A sense that something familiar has been loosened. That loosening is not loss, it is a space. Space allows perception to reorganize. You are not being asked to abandon beliefs. You are being asked to observe how they operate. Observation weakens automatic control. This is why clarity often arrives quietly, without drama, without revelation, without emotional surge. It arrives as recognition, and once recognized, belief can no longer masquerade as truth. Truth does not ask for belief. It reveals itself through coherence. Sit with what has been said. Notice what defends it. Notice what feels threatened. That is not an enemy. That is a mechanism becoming visible. This channel exists to make mechanisms visible. Nothing more.